This video is a requirement for our subject GEC 107 Science, Technology, and Society.
Hey there! Did you know that our province, Laguna, is now celebrating Anilag this month after 3 years of hiatus?
Anilag, short for Ani ng Laguna or Harvest of Laguna, is a week-long event organized to honor a bountiful harvest as well as to highlight the rich culture of our province and the abilities and talents of our people.
Speaking of harvest, while different crops are grown in various regions, the most common ones in Laguna are rice, coconuts, mangoes, and bananas.
These crops grow in Laguna, but other crops are not able to thrive well here.
That's because we need to take number of factors into account in order to produce crops large enough to harvest.
Examples include the ability of water, the quality of the soil, the tools and equipments required for cultivation, the spacing between the plants, and the quality of the sunlight.
There are a lot of other factors, but this made us wonder, can soil salinity really affect plant growth?
To be specific, can it affect the growth of these manga beans?
To answer this question, of course, we decided to follow the scientific method.
The scientific method is a process used to gather information and produce facts through testing and experimentation. The steps to the scientific method are as follows.
The first step requires us to make an observation.
In our case, we observed that in order to grow plants, need essential elements like carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. As we observe how different crops were produced in a various location, our curious mind began to question how mango beans holds its salinity in various conditions.
The mango bean's natural behavior might be affected if one of its elements is changed by manipulating the salt concentration of water. The ability to survive at a particular salinity is important ecologically in influencing the natural distribution of plant species in salt-affected soil. This is because the salinity becomes a problem when enough salts accumulate in the root zone to negatively affect plant growth.
Now, let's go to the second step, which is to formulate a hypothesis.
Prior studies already proved that the salt decreases the survival rate of plants. Despite those facts, this experimental research was carried out to further prove the effects of salt solution to plants like mango beans.
We, the researchers, predicted that mango beans will have little to no sprout when salt is added to water. Exposure to sunlight will also be a factor and could still affect the growth of the mango beans.
The third step is to test our hypothesis.
We decided to test our hypothesis by conducting an experiment.
We conducted the experiment individually. Each of us planted mango bean seeds in 2 plastic cups with the same amount of soil that received different amounts of sunlight and watered them with different salt solutions. For 2, we watered the mango bean seed in cup A and cup B with salt solutions that was assigned to each.
And so, we move on to the next step, which is the actual experimentation.
This is how we did our experiment. We first prepared our materials, which are the mango beans, plastic cups, soil, and of course our saline solution. For this experiment, we have a total of 5 samples.
Sample A, which is our control, will be watered with water that contains 0% salt. Next is sample B that will be watered with 5% salinase solution. Sample C that will be watered with 25% salinase solution. And sample D that will be watered with 50% salinase solution. And lastly is the sample E that will be watered with a 60% salinase solution.
First, we both filled our plastic cups with enough soil. Then we planted our mango beans about an inch deep in the soil, making sure that the beans are not placed too close to each other.
We placed one of our cups in the place where there is sunlight and the other in a place with little to no access to sunlight.
Next, We watered them with 2 to 3 tablespoons of solution that is assigned to each sample. We watered them once a day for 2 days.
In the last day of our experiment, we noticed that there are no signs of germination visible on the surface of the soil. Because of that, we decided to remove the soil from the cup, find the mango beans that we planted, and look for signs of germination.
The mango beans that I watered with only water showed signs of germination. The beans from both cups have cracks, which is one of the visible signs of germination.
As for the mungo beans that I planted, I noticed that the mungo beans from the cup that I placed to allocation with poor sunlight didn't change its appearance. It looks exactly like how it looked before I planted it. Most of the mungo beans from the cup with access to sunlight also look similar from the mungo beans earlier, but one of them has a small crack in it.
The mango beans treated with 25% salt concentration were able to show signs of growth, and we assume that this is because the beans weren't fully buried in the soil. We think that since it is on the surface, it was not completely soaked or exposed to the solid environment that we intended. This result is due to the error in our part after a little deviation to the intended procedure.
All of the mango beans I planted did not show any signs of germination. Instead, what I found from both of my cups were traces of salt that was formed after some water from the solution I used to water the mango beans have evaporated from the heat of the sun.
After checking, I also found out that my mango beans from both cups didn't show any signs of germination.
Now that experimentation is over, let us move on to the final step, which is the drawing of conclusion. In this step, we analyze the result or data from the experiment to determine whether the hypothesis is accepted or not.
Now that we have completed the scientific method, and now that we are able to answer our question, it is finally time to say goodbye.
I hope you keep in mind the steps to the scientific method and how to apply it to gather information and generate new knowledge. What are you waiting for? Go out there and observe. Maybe you'll find something you want to explore using scientific method.